All right, welcome back to the War Room. I am here with Karsten, here to break down the opening round of Supercross. Anaheim won. It had all of its crazy moments. Once again, it never ceases to amaze us and leave us baffled half the time afterwards. To be quite honest with you, and yeah, I mean, let's break it down, dude. I mean, Jett Lawrence comes out, and I don't know how to view it. Like, did he shock the world? Or was this just such a repeat of what we saw from him in the outdoors last summer that we were like, well, he got the whole shot. Well, good luck catching him. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought after he did well in qualifying, but then after the heat race, he didn't look. I mean, he looked good, but the heat race, he wasn't. He had the mistake, hit the tough block, fell, and I was like, all right, he's a rookie. Look at this.
Felt like the door was open.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, this might not be a runaway season for Jett. And then the main happened, and it was. So, yeah.
Well, once he pulled the whole shot, I was like, oh no. But then, like,
dude, it was like motocross. He's always there, every time. He's every just time. First turn. Someone's got the whole shot. Maybe it's not him every time, but it's like, there he is. There's Jett coming up.
Yep, and there he goes.
Yep. Right on through. Mm-hmm.
Well, I will say, I was worried about him completely breaking away from the pack and kind of doing what Tomac or Sexton were doing on different nights last year and just pulling a 20-second gap. And luckily, the longest gap he ever got was 3.5 seconds. So that he stayed right in front of Anderson and Cooper the whole time. He never really pulled a huge gap. Yeah. That's encouraging, especially with the fact that one of those guys was El Hombre, Jason Anderson.
Yeah,
he was looking really good. Best I've seen him looking in the since 2022. But I will say, kind of going backwards a little bit in 450s, heat race winners. I think there were some big shocks there. Cooper Webb not only I think had his best qualifying session I've seen in like maybe 2 or 3 years, like before 2022, because he put a third overall in qualifying. He was only 0.2 off from Jett and Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
he looked good.
Throwing down a heater, dude. Threw down a heater. And then dude goes out in the heat race and dude absolutely smoked him.
Yeah.
Absolutely smoked him.
And he was ripping in the main until that, I don't know, that little table situation. He kind of got his back tire off the line and flew over the handlebars. I was devastated.
Well, what I found was that was the exact same thing that happened to Nate Thrasher, and it was on. I mean, not the same size bike, but the same brand of bike. So there must be some kind of Yamaha curse over that little like 45-degree tabletop, because they both did the exact same thing. They kind of caught a weird part of the rut on their way up, so it kind of like turned the front end of their bikes down, and they kind of nosedived, and they were a little bit off balance. So basically, once they landed off balance, they had nowhere to go but just face down to the left.
Yeah.
And I'm just hoping Thrasher's okay. I think what I've heard from reports is that it was a dislocated shoulder. I'm just hoping nothing's broken, because dislocated shoulder, maybe you're back in a week or 2, 3 weeks. It depends on how bad it was, if there's any ligament damage. Don't know. Clyde Webb got back up, so that was good. And there was another particular German that shocked us in the heat race. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, Roxon was great out there. I mean, he was crushing. And that's why I was like, okay, this is looking good, because I had picked him for Pulp MX. I was like, all right, my boy's going to do well this season. And then, didn't pan out.
We'll talk about that in a second, because there's going to be some passionate statements made by me, especially, and probably you.
It's going to be something to watch, because both of our heat race winners ended up going down to the main.
Yeah. For completely different reasons. Completely different reasons. One of them was because of an idiot. One of them was because of just bad luck, quite honestly. So moving on from the heat races, I'll say this. There's one particular guy who's looking like he's back. And who would that be?
Shocked me. Jason Anderson looked great, dude. He was fast, and he was keeping up, like you were saying. I don't know if this was just a second ago or before, but yeah, the gap didn't get too big, and Jason kept him reeled in for the most part. Cooper was, stuck back there behind him, but Jason got going, and he was scooting. and he wasn't making many mistakes. He was doing well. So I think if that race maybe was 10 minutes longer, might have had a different winner, you know?
Well, hey, I also make the argument of this. I think if Cooper and Jason Anderson would have just actually, like, one of them just let the other by, or the other one breaks away, and they're not fighting each other for half the race,
Yeah.
then they can actually mount up a charge. I mean, until the last 10 minutes of that race, where like Anderson and Webb were really dicing it up and throwing some stuff down, and they even traded at one point. I mean, heck, at one point it looked like Webb had the move done, and I think Anderson had
Yeah.
cut down and took that inside line back. It was a great battle, so it was entertaining.
Very much
But
so.
the gap at one point was like less than a second, and then Webb introduced himself. So then Anderson's having to ride defensive. He's having to cut down. He's having to take inside lines, defensive lines. That's when Jett stretched that to about 3.5, 3.25, and then when they reeled him back in, they started fighting again. It's just it's almost like I want some of these riders when they're doing that, and Jett's that close in front of them. I'm like, okay, can y'all just like team up, or just do an F1 where you just pick a lead rider and just, hey, if you can't get him, then we swap. We just take turns going at this guy. It's I was just like, can we just see if someone can get past Jett? Can someone get a front wheel in front of him?
If the races were longer, they might be able to do something like that, but they're so short, especially compared to motocross. I mean, it feels like blink of an eye, and they're talking about, halfway through the race, Monster Energy at Kroger, whatever. And then boom, the race is over, just like that.
Yep.
So,
20 minutes feels like 2 sometimes.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how fast it feels for those guys actually doing it. So, yeah, I think the biggest takeaway with Anderson was, one, he had a great start. His starts last year were not good. And then the other thing was, we talked about on the preview show how important the new frame on these Cowie bikes was, and the new shocks, going from the BFRC shocks to the factory shocks designed specifically for the new frame. And we were looking for 2 things. We were looking for how good are they in the whoops, and are they going to be able to handle the bull turns better? Are they going to be able to cut down late in the race to be able to take defensive lines, or to be able to take different lines to set themselves for passes? And especially with Anderson, but really with both of them, I think it's safe to say we saw that. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, for sure. And even with the 250 guys too, they were doing very well on those new on the new Cali bikes, because I believe those ones were different as well, weren't they?
Oh yeah. The frames applied to both in regards to design. Obviously, it's gonna be a little bit different with the different size bikes, but yeah. But with the lighter weight 250s, it was really more of a bigger deal for those 450s. So I was just happy to see them be able to get through the whoops a little bit better. All right, you know what? We've stayed positive as long as we can. Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. You know what's coming. Just go ahead and tell people what happened. Okay.
Well, we had a particular rider that came out, and sometimes you slice and dice in a way that's not as favorable for everybody else on the track. Maybe you do it once, maybe you do it twice, 3 times. 3 times gets to be a little much. 2's
and let's not talk about 15 years either.
Yeah, right. This is one singular night. Maybe it's happened in the past, but tonight we got Vince Friese came out, and
unfortunately,
for the most part, well, for me at least, ruined my picks.
Ruined my picks in fantasy too.
For pulp. Yeah, it just ruined it. I mean, I saw the whole thing.
Well, okay. So for those that maybe didn't watch too closely because their favorite riders aren't Ken Roczen, Malcolm Stewart, or Dean Wilson, or Hunter Lawrence. In the heat race, Vince Friese basically got a decent start, and Hunter Lawrence and Chase Sexton and some poor privateer were on the inside of him, and he was trying to swoop from the outside and try to pull the whole shot. And, when you have that outside line, you can do that move of, you just to take a high-speed sweeping line going from outside to in to try to get in front of those guys. But, the one ingredient to doing that correctly is you have to, clear the guys that are inside of you, so that way when you do move over into their line, you don't hit them, right? So, like,
being faster helps.
Yeah, so, like, hypothetically, you're faster, and hypothetically, you don't have a front wheel right next to your leg. So that way, when you move over, you don't knock over everyone like dominoes. But unfortunately, he left that ingredient out, and he knocks over Hunter Lawrence, who knocks over Chase Sexton, and then the debris from that knocked over some poor privateer. He got cleaned out. I mean, it was bad. And that basically led to Hunter Lawrence getting a terrible gate pick for the LCQ, because I think he finished 18th in that heat race because his bars were all messed up. Clutch was probably 90 degrees rotated in the other direction. And it was just ridiculous because that ended up with Hunter Lawrence not making the main. So that hurt me in Pulp MX Fantasy. And then I was like, okay, you know what? That was bad. And I have a really good knowledge of the history of Vince Friese in his 15-year career and how much he's hated for doing stuff like this. I remember watching his ridiculous takeout of Christian Craig in 250s 2 years ago in the sand section. That was ridiculous.
I know what you're talking about. Whenever they went in that little tunnel area.
Yeah, and he spiked them straight onto concrete and was this close to hitting a column. Which why there was a column right next to that section of the track, I don't know. But there's concrete columns all over. Anywho, so me and a lot of other diehard Supercross fans hate Vince Friese. Just putting it as lightly as I can. And I was already ticked about that. And then I was like, okay, you know what? He doesn't matter. He did his thing. Friese is going to Friese. And then we get to the main event. And in one lap, ladies and gentlemen, he took out Malcolm Stewart and Ken Roxon, and I think another privateer, because he tried to rail it around the outside where there was no room, and Malcolm was already there. He hits Kenny and Malcolm at the same time, somehow gets away clean. So he gets I think he was 12th or whatever, and he was behind Dean Wilson. And then by the time they come around the finish line into that first 180-degree bull turn, he sees Dean, and I think his eyes just glared red because he and Dean got beef from World Supercross in years past. And Dean is one of the riders that is very vocal about calling this dude out. I mean, if you saw his Instagram post this morning, he calls Vince Friese out, and he was all saying like, "Hey, it's one thing to go do this, but you got to own up to it. You're sitting here with your comments turned off on all your posts. You can't take the heat. Get out of the kitchen," I think is what he said. So, anywho, these guys got beef. Friese just sends it down the inside on a move that was way too far back, had no hope of actually completing the pass. So, and he knew he didn't have enough room to actually slow himself down and take that inside line. So he just took it up the bowl, cleaned out Dean Wilson, and cleaned him out so bad that when they both fell, and of the two, it was so funny that Dean was able to get up. Friese immediately just walks off. Like, so he was hurt to some degree. We don't know what the injury was. And while Dean is trying to Dean was so mad, he took the time while he was trying to wrestle his bike back up off the ground to flick off Vince Friese as he's doing this. You know how mad you got to be mid-race to just, you know what, I should be getting on this bike and racing, but you know what, I got to send this message real quick. Just, it was bad, dude. I mean, you're talking about he took out 7 riders, one of them being himself, in one race day. I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, people have gotten black flagged for less, dude. I mean, I'm tired of watching him race because he contributes nothing to the sport except in a form of excitement of ruining other people's days and hurting people. And it's sad too, because like, it's gotta stink to be him and be that hated to the point where you had a private Instagram for so many years, and now you just have to post without comments available, so people can't roast you. And the other thing is, he's a decently talented rider in regards to raw speed. Like that Moto Concepts, privateer half factory bike should not have been as far up as it was before he did all that stupidity. Now, granted, if you wreck 2 guys that should be in the top 5, and then another guy who's in 11th, that does help you move up. But still, he looked pretty fast for for riding the bike he was on. So you just wish that he wouldn't be wasting what little talent he has.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That's as lightly as I can put it, because when you wreck my favorite rider on the first turn, I was definitely there were some things thrown. Put it that way.
Yeah,
things thrown. I was ticked.
All right, let's go to something a little more positive. Your favorite rider. We all know who it is. Not looking too bad. Not a great start, but he's looking all right.
Talking about Chase Sexton?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I think he's 1B to Malcolm. Malcolm's my boy,
Okay, so
but
if Malcolm's out for the season, it's Chase.
that's what happened last year. Malcolm
Okay.
was out for the season, and I was like, well, I'm not just going to stop watching races without having a dog in the fight. So
Yeah.
Chase quickly became one of my favorite riders, and I love watching his style. He's awesome, great athlete, built like a brick outhouse dude. That dude's tough as nails and lifts like 600 pounds. He's one of the best athletes we've seen. Him and Jett I think him and Jett are just going to be ridiculous, dude, and Tomac for now. But yeah, the big thing with Sexton was it was kind of like what we kind of predicted. Didn't have everything together yet in regards to putting the whole race pace together, the long run, because we saw in quality, it took him a little bit, but he threw a heater down in Group A round 2 qualifying. That was only a 10th off of Jett or even less than that. And I was like, okay, look, the speed's there. At least over one lap, speed's there. And then in the race, he got an okay start, I think, somewhere in the top 10, maybe closer to 6th or 7th or whatever. I'm not 100% sure. Worked his way up to 4th, and then when Webb went down, he moved up to 3rd. But more importantly, I think he only had one little mistake, and it was just he came up a little bit short on a triple, I think, and then he had to single out of that rhythm section, I think, and that slowed him down, kind of prevented him from trying to insert himself into the top 3.
Yeah.
And then
as
the
far
main
as Chase goes, like mistake wise, with that, it was kind of the one thing, not bad.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying is like, the whoop speed was okay, not his best, right? But it was okay. He didn't look out of control. He just looked like he was really having to focus on not overriding, right? And then his overall pace was good, not top 3 good. It was not there yet. But the main thing was the stability on the front end was there. He did not tuck the front, never looked like he was going to tuck the front. And that's what we're looking for.
That almost fall that he had could have totally been a scenario where on the old bike that could have happened to him. It was kind
100%.
of heading that direction, and he came out of it and looked fine. So,
and he was on record in the post-race press conferences saying, like, look, like we were getting about a week and a half to a week out from Anaheim 1 and looking like, okay, this is going to look terrible in regards to the setup, and like where he was. This is just his words, and he was like the factory team really helped him out, sent all kinds of stuff down for them to dial in the setup, and they eventually got to work. So it's good to see that. Tomac had a very much an off night, and Tomac even put a post out this morning, this Sunday, saying, "I just have a bad relationship with Anaheim 1." So had a very lonely 8th place ride. And honestly, he just looked a little gassed in those last couple laps that I saw him, because he had a big gap in the early part of the race to Justin Cooper, and Justin Cooper was able to run him down and pass him for 8th. So Tomac ended up finishing 9th, last finishing rider of the 3 Yamahas, and that's with Cooper Webb having a dirt nap briefly. Yep. And it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back. I think he will. It's just a matter of how.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously I had him in the top 3 in my selection from last week. But I figured he would, he's one of my favorite riders. You got to put him in the top 3 when you're picking who's going to be up there for A1. But I had a feeling there was a good chance, depending how he started out, it might be a slow start for him this season to kind of get going, and then he kind of get back into race form. But the good thing is mentally, he is a guy that if someone's going to start out with a 9th place finish in A1 and end up with a championship at the end of this thing, he's the guy to do that. He's not going to, have a poor night and be like, oh, boo-hoo, I'm going to go, not work as hard in practice this week, and I'm going to be all pissed off and not have a good, free practice coming up next weekend or whatever. Like he's probably already forgotten about this race. He's looking at the next one. He's ready to go. So that's 100%. That veteran mentality right there.
Well, and he has a curse with Anaheim 1. I don't think he had ever won Anaheim 1 until last year, and he's always had like really off results at Anaheim 1 over his career, from my understanding. So it's not a race he had to win or even had to get a top 5. He just needed to get back into race condition with a lot of riders.
Yeah.
He wasn't the only one.
100%.
Yep. And then I tell you what, dude, Plessinger and Dylan Ferrandis, those guys look good. I mean, Plessinger getting that P4 looked really, really good. Best I've seen him look in the whoops in a while. And really, the KTM and Husky guys, that's the best I've seen him look in the whoops in general.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get a good look at Barsha because he was kind of irrelevant this race. I think he got 8th. He mentioned that he was kind of having to deal with injuries or not riding as much from injuries. He didn't do terrible. No, top 10, not bad.
Given this field that we have right now, like 7th place for Barsha, I mean, that's,
yeah.
I don't want to say that's.
And not to mention that he didn't get to ride as much because of his injuries, the surgery he had to have after the SMX crash in round 3. So, like, he just needed him and Tomac, even Malcolm Stewart to some extent, even Jorge Prado to some extent. Those guys just need to get in race shape, get those laps in, get back in race conditions, get used to having on the start of races, having a tire right next to your face and being okay with it. It's but I tell you what, Dylan Ferrandis shocked a lot of people taking that Firepower Honda and putting it in the top 5. I mean, that was a great ride.
I did not think he was going to even be top 10. So that was shocked me. Dylan Ferrandis, shocking. Jason Anderson, shocking.
Look, when Dylan Ferrandis is the king of complaining about the bike, and for the first time in years, we hear him say, I love this bike. I'm so comfortable. I've never been happier on a bike. Maybe we should have listened a little bit more because
that's dangerous.
That was a fantastic performance. Jorge Prado, honestly, I think he had P13 on the night, but that's a success for him because he had a really good start. He was a half wheel away from pulling the whole shot. Yeah. And he held 8th place for a while. And then I think fell down to Cooper, and I know Roxon passed him eventually. Tomac got past him eventually. Malcolm got past him. I mean, overall, for his first ever race with this thing, he didn't look terrible in the whoops. He just looked like he didn't have enough flow, and he's even on record saying, like, wasn't a bad night. I wasn't comfortable in the whoops when they got really broken down, and these are different than the ones I was riding at the test track, which, of course, that's Supercross. It's never like it is at the test track.
Yeah.
Not bad for the MXGP World Champion doing this. I mean, we have to keep in mind that there's been people just as talented like Jeffrey Harlings that came over and tried to do it just at the test track and just couldn't deal with the whoops. So
yeah,
I think it was a good showing from him.
Yeah, I mean, this is like his rookie year. You think about it, like it's and he went straight into 450, didn't do 250 first. Yep. So yeah, I mean, can't really complain about that finish.
Now, what I can't complain about is Malcolm Stewart's finish because he got robbed.
Left a lot to be desired there through the incidences in the first lap.
The freeze,
no doubt.
Freeze.
Yeah.
Malcolm Stewart came out, had a half decent start. It was at least in the top 10. Then he got freezed. So did Roxon. So did some other guys. Got back on the bike. He and Roxon and Craig had like a crazy battle for like 16th and 15th or whatever that was going on. And then Craig was in 14th at one point, and then he crashed, unfortunately. But anywho, Malcolm, at some point he tipped over a second time from his own mistake. I think it might have been really late in the race because he was kind of like right at Kenny's heels for the whole race, and they were just cutting through the pack together. And then when Kenny got to 10th and he was behind him in 11th and he was like a second or two off, I just saw his time drop to 10 seconds off of Kenny. I was like, what happened? And of course, camera's not on him. Not going to see it.
Yeah.
So I think he might have just tucked the front end. I saw him do that in qualifying. Just tuck the front end coming out of a bowl turn. Not 100% sure, but what I will say, he had a good heat race, really good heat race. Did he get passed by AP? He did get passed by AP, which I wasn't predicting. But I will say, same with AP. His whoop speed looked good. Whoop speed looked back. He didn't have that whoop speed last year or even in 2022. Not that it was bad. It's just it's not up to his standard as a steward and what we've seen from him before. Looks like that new frame. I guess he is running the new frame before seeing this kind of improvement in the whoops from both him and Aaron Plessinger. Which Plessinger was asked about, are you running the new frame or are you running the old frame? And his direct quote was, I don't know, man. I just ride it. My biggest accomplishment in life is just trying to, my biggest desire is to look like Joe Dirt. And, so then of course one of the guys at the press conference went, mission accomplished, dude. And he laughed. So anywho, I don't know if he was just trying to use that as a cover to not give people any material to work with in regards to, he is running the new frame. He's not, but I'm assuming they are if we're seeing this improvement in whoop speed. And then, I think Malcolm is going to hopefully have a good bounce back race, knock on wood. Because I feel like he and Kenny both got robbed of top 5 potential because they both look good. We saw what AP did, and I think that he was riding just as good as him. So on the worst end of things is Christian Craig had a bad start, and he was in 14th, and then just going all over and on off tabletop, just had a crash there. And then what I heard from the report of Steve Mathis was I saw late in the race that he just was labeled as DNF. And I was like, what happened? Like, they didn't show the crash.
I saw it too. They didn't show anything. And it was like, all of a sudden he was out. And I was like, oh shoot.
So he had the crash attempting to go on an on-off tabletop, probably in that big, long rhythm section that had the 2 triples and then the on-off, and got back up, tried to ride some more. And then what was reported from Mathis is it looked like he just chose to road off willingly because the bike was messed up. Gotcha. Maybe the handlebars were screwed up. They were uneven, out of alignment, whatever. Kenny actually said in his Instagram post this morning that the bar is ridiculously uneven. His bike was all kinds of jacked up. He was having trouble even just getting the bike to go in a straight line. But he said he was going to have to break his femur if he to not finish that race or something along those lines. It would have taken an act of God for him to not try to finish that race. So hats off to Kenny. And it sucks for Christian Craig to kind of have that bad Anaheim 1, but hopefully all Craig needs to do, like we talked about, he just needs to act like he needs to fight between position 5 and 10. And he just get good starts, stay in the top 10, be there every weekend, don't override, continue to work on the bike in your setup, get comfortable, and you'll be okay. And then you can take those steps and get closer and closer to being a top 5 guy. But for now, he's got to put together top 10s minimum. So, before we get into 250s, let's talk about our PulpMX fantasy picks or not to picks in regards to this class for next week. For those that play PulpMX fantasy, main thing to consider is, look, the guys that were all-stars going into this race were based off of projections. And now going into this next week, it's just the literal top 8 in points. So you just take a look at your top 8 from Anaheim 1 and the results, and those are your all-stars. So what does that mean? It means we got 3 really compelling non-all-star picks you can put in that will give you a shot at double points, because Eli Tomac, Malcolm Stewart, and Ken Roczen all finished outside the top 8. So that should mean they will not be all-stars. So I don't know about you, but when I look at Ken Roczen, Malcolm Stewart, and Eli Tomac, I think at least 2 of those guys are going to put it at the top 5, or at least top 6, top 7. So even if they have a negative handicap, like a -2 or a -1, Malcolm Stewart was a -2 handicap, but a non-all-star coming into the Anaheim 1, really good shot at getting the equivalent with the handicaps added or subtracted to a top 10 finish with double points. So I don't know about you. That's who I'm looking at.
It'd be hard not to take all 3 of them, honestly. I'm probably only going to take Ken. That might be controversial, might not be.
No, because he looked the best of the 3 because he won his heat race and he dusted everybody in his heat race.
Yep.
His whoop speed was great. And the other thing is, we talked about, he's got the least amount of changes on his bike to the whole field. I mean, literally, because that's still the same Suzuki bike from 2012.
Right.
It's just been upgraded. Like, it's got a Kickstarter. It's got there's nothing. I mean, he's just really worked on the suspension and the forks and stuff like that, and cleaned out as much of the old stuff as he can. But it's still a 2012 bike. I mean, they're just rolling with it, dude. I don't know how he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I think Suzuki went from carbureted to fuel injection, and they were like, you know what? Let's just hang on to this bike for a while. We don't need to change it. This is fine.
Hang up the wrenches, boys. We nailed it.
Yeah. And it wasn't actually that good.
No. James Stewart in 2014 was making that thing look way better than it was.
Yeah.
And now Kenny's doing the same thing. It's a very similar situation. So I'd say the main guys to watch out for in regards to picking is going to be your guys that were in that top 8 but barely, like a Justin Cooper, because they're going to be an all-star. But they're gonna not be able to give you double points. And if they're gonna be your only all-star pick, I don't see him cracking even the top 5. I don't see Justin Cooper cracking the top 5. Who else was?
And it depends on the
I don't see
handicaps,
Barsha.
too.
I don't think Barsha's going to crack the top 5 next week. I wouldn't pick him either for my all-star. So, yeah, I think those are your main guys to avoid for the 450s.
Yeah, that bottom 8 section is not where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guys that are the all-stars that are probably just going to be still only a 5 through 10 guy. Don't go with them. Go with the 3 guys we talked about earlier that are going to be guys that are eligible for double points. They will probably have an even or a negative handicap, but look, double points is double points, right? So, and also for your first to finish line pick for the 450s, I think it's between Jorge Prado and Jett Lawrence, because Jorge Prado was a front wheel away from pulling that whole shot, dude. He was so close. So if he does that, he could be the first to the finish line unless he obliterates himself in the whoops. But yeah, so we'll see what our picks look like next week. We'll post them. We'll post them every week. Moving on to the 250s, and dude, this was even less predictable, even and with a smaller field in regards to how stacked the talent was than the 450s.
You thought it was less predictable? Dude, I thought it went exactly how it should have.
I don't know, because I didn't have Shimoda barely making the main.
Okay. Fair.
And having to work his way up from like 10th or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think it was a toss-up. I think the two favorites were between, or maybe 3. It's like Levi Kitchen, Joe Shimoda, and RJ Hampshire. You think about RJ, he's been sitting behind the Lawrence brothers, or particularly Jett, for the last 2 years, and like he's been the only other guy getting wins occasionally. Whenever he's able to push one of those guys, and Levi Kitchen won a Triple Crown, but he didn't even get a race win of those 3 races in the Triple Crown. So like RJ's the favorite. And interesting statistic, he's the first guy to have the red plate on a Husqvarna since Jason Anderson in 2018, I believe. Might have been.
Really?
I think it was 2018. Yeah, never been a red plate on the Husqvarna in over 5 years.
Congratulations to the Husky boys.
Yeah, big achievement for the Husky boys. It could be more than 5 years, but to my understanding, the last guy that had that red plate was Jason Anderson. So props to him, putting Husqvarna back on the map, baby. I think RJ is a title favorite. Obviously, Shimoda, Jordan Smith, Levi Kitchen, those are the guys chasing him, and they're capable of chasing him. I think RJ could be a guy that literally it's 50-50. Does he win, or does he tip over, or do an RJ and have a spectacular crash? I don't know. I hope not, because I really want to see RJ do well.
I like RJ. He's a nice guy.
He's a good dude. Really good dude. Yeah. And then, dude, the big surprise was Julian Beaumer, who pulled the whole shot and also dusted people in the heat race too, and gets 6 overall in his debut. And this is a guy that, look, yes, he's had dirt bike experience. He's not a complete, this wasn't his first time riding a dirt bike, but the dude is a world champion jet skier, which didn't even know there was a world championship for such a thing. But he's a world championship jet skier. And then he comes out, rocking the number 929, triple digit, almost privateer number for Red Bull KTM. And dude, just freaking ripping it. I mean, my goodness. I mean, held 6 for so long in that main event. I'm sorry, not 6, second for a good while in that main event. And, got 6 overall. He was one of my long shot picks for double points, and he cashed in for me, dude. Man, I'm excited from what I see from him replacing Maximus Volan spots at KTM. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I'm excited for this guy. I saw an interview with him a while back, I feel like, and I don't know what show it was on. I want to say it was on Adam. No, that's a lie. I saw him on some interview somewhere, and he was talking about how he raced jet skis. He was thinking about coming over to do Supercross, and I was like, that would be sick. Because, dude, jet skis are so badass. So cool.
They are.
So cool. Yeah, and apparently he wanted to race dirt bikes instead because he doesn't feel as safe on a jet ski. I'm like, dude.
Look, to each his own, but I won't want to live on the difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
Water
whatever,
sounds a
dude.
lot safer to me, but
I don't care what got you here. I'm just happy you're here. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude was ripping.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
say the main negative of the night though was Nate Thrasher with that real tough crash when he's trying to push for a top 3.
Look
And it's the
bad.
same thing that happened to Cooper Webb, dude. Same
Yeah.
45-degree tabletop. Folded the front a little bit going down because of a rut. Just hit in a little bit weird and shoulder straight into the dirt and looked like it was dislocated. We're hoping nothing that's broken. Hopefully he heals up and he's able to contend for that championship. But dude, in a 7-race championship for 250s, taking a full DNF is not going to help, dude. It's a lot of work to make up in 6 races.
Yeah, and that crash did not look good. Whenever they replayed it a couple times, oh my gosh! I mean,
I was worried something was broken, dude. I'm hoping not. I'm waiting to see the reports on it. I haven't seen anything. People were thinking it was dislocated, but we'll see. He was down for a good amount of time once he walked out of the line. I will say, Maximus Volan looked great on that on that Kawasaki, moved from KTM, won his heat race. Was especially thankful of Kawasaki and made sure to thank the heck out of them on camera for all of the KTM factory guys he used to work with to here. I don't know if there's some pettiness or what, but was it just me or did he just look a little too thankful in his heat race interview?
Hey, listen, if you're a thankful guy, go on ahead and get it out there. If you've got some beef with your old team, so what? So
hey,
what?
all I'm saying, dude, Julien Beaumer, he was a little too close to Volan for him to be talking like that. So we'll see. I don't think it's bad. Obviously, it was all positive vibes, but you can't hear all of that thankfulness for the new team without kind of being like, okay, well then how bad really was it when you were with your old one? Like, are you kind of just doing a little positive and a little sneaking a little under the? I don't know, but I was kind of reading between the lines there. So I think you're. I think your guys that are really in the title here, Jordan Smith looked really good. Levi Kitchen looked good. RJ looked good. Do you see anyone else getting in the picture here? I will say Levi Kitchen looked great on that Kawasaki too. He looked good.
Yeah, I think Mitchell Oldenburg is definitely somebody to watch out for because he started out last because he jumped a gate and got stuck, and he got all the way back up to 8th. So if he's able to get a good start, I think he's definitely somebody that's got some good pace, obviously. But dude, RJ pulled quite the gap. So
yeah, 6-second gap, really good.
It's definitely early to be saying like, okay, here's your champion. This is the first race, so we can't be saying that. But for me, this race went about how I thought it was going to. RJ Hampshire was the clear number 2 guy last year. Jett's gone.
Yeah,
simple
ascended
math.
to the throne.
Yeah, and then Joe Shimoda, typically, everybody's been talking about it. He starts out the season slow, ends up doing well towards the end of the season. Here we are. He got 4th. Had great pace, but made some mistakes. And yeah, Levi Kitchen finished about kind of how he was last year. I don't know. I think that, I would say Mitchell Oldenburg's probably one guy to look for to maybe move up a little bit next week. But otherwise, this might be like your championship finish.
Well, I will say, imagine how crazy this class would be if you had Cameron McAdoo in there in place of either Voland or I can't remember if it was Voland or Kitchen. I think Voland was supposed to go race East Coast, but McAdoo had a crash in practice, so he got moved back to East Coast.
Typical Cali activities.
Dude, well, especially with McAdoo and Faulkner, those guys can't keep it on 2 wheels for the sake of their lives, dude. I mean,
they're fast.
Like I said,
when they got it up, they're fast.
Hey, Faulkner was the only guy that for the previous several years that could beat Jett straight up.
And so, dude, they're pretty tough though too. Wasn't it McAdoo that had that crash? Was it? I don't know if it was last year or the year before.
Oh yeah, it was last year when his whole arm was flung up.
No, the one where he got flung and slammed onto the tabletop.
Yes,
that was McAdoo, wasn't it?
Yes, that was McAdoo, but also he ate it in the whip so bad that same year because he walked that one off, and I believe so. But the main thing was he had a big crash in the whoops in free practice or qualifying rather, and his whole arm was purple and swollen like he was Stay Puft, just on the arm.
Didn't he end up still racing the main
and
that night?
he rode that race.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought. Yeah.
I think he got like 6 or at least the top 10. Like, dude, is crazy.
Yeah. So for these guys to be, in a situation where they're like, okay, I gotta, not race for a little while, it's got to be bad. It's got to be
Yeah,
bad.
but just imagine if we would have had a healthy McAdoo in this field. I don't know what would have happened. So would have been
Yeah.
really interesting. But that'll make the East Coast with Danger Boy Deegan, not Voland, McAdoo, and Austin Faulkner. That's gonna be
East
it's gonna
Coast
be
is gonna be
good.
good. East Coast is
It's gonna
gonna
be
be
really
good.
good. It's gonna be good, dude. So yeah, I can't wait for that. It'll be February 3rd. Have any last minute things to anything else that caught your eye before we go to our first ever fan question on this show?
Pro tip: when you pick your Pulp MX riders, you can pick them after qualifying.
Yep. And
Keep that
getting
in
those
mind.
non-all-star guys is a big deal. Getting those double points, big deal.
Yes, I picked all All-Star guys. We have a 4-person league.
There was a guy on Instagram that was like, "Why so many all-stars?" And I was like, "He's going conservative, dude. He's going conservative."
Listen, well, I was looking, and okay, first of all, the guys that weren't all-stars, I was like, I don't think you're gonna do that good. Okay, that was the first thing. And then second thing, the handicaps were all out of whack. They were totally whacked out. Like there was guys that the handicaps made no sense. I think whenever it says on the Pulp MX site, what was it? The handicaps committee is in shambles.
Yeah, that's
They
what it said
weren't.
when
They're
they were
not.
waiting to post them.
Yeah, they're not kidding. That it's in shambles. Even once it's posted, they're in shambles. Okay, the handicaps made no sense on some of these riders. Well, like Malcolm Stewart was the lowest. He was -2.
Well, that's
So
because he's the guy that
well,
was on a fringe of being an all-star. Because basically, if you were an all-star, you're going to get a positive handicap because, okay, you're not going to get double points. So they're going to give you a positive handicap, just one for that. But
so it's to
because of the fact,
offset the double points.
yes. So since Malcolm was basically on the fringe of being voted in as a top 8 all-star, but because of the fact he was returning from injury, they probably wanted to leave him as a non-top 8 all-star. They're like, okay, but he's really likely to get in that top 10. So let's give him a -2 handicap so that he has to finish 8th or better to get that double points. Since it's so likely he could put it in the top 10.
Okay, so
And
I
he
just don't
almost
know how
did
to
despite
play.
falling down twice.
All right, yeah. Well, then I get their handicap was actually they kind of got it right.
Yeah, it was pretty spot on.
Okay, so I just don't know what I'm doing. All right.
Well, but they didn't get Barsha's handicap right, and they didn't get Tomac's handicap right either. Say that. So
Also true. So yeah, it's not going to be 100%, but next
it
week I
never will
think will
be.
be better.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, and I even I was like, okay, I can wait till after qualifying. I'm going to see how guys wind up.
Yep.
We're still we proceed. We proceed.
That's the fun of it, dude. It really added a whole other level to the game. So if you guys ain't playing Pulp MX Fantasy, go for it. Have a good time.
Oh, it was so much more fun watching the race with I don't think we have anything on the line for our league, but I was like, I had more guys to root for, and it felt like there was a reason for it besides just wanting to see.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something for the winner of our little 5-man league. I honestly hope it's not me, but I'm going to try my hardest to win for the sake of just not blowing it. But I want it to be someone else, so I'm not giving the prize to me. If I win, I won't do a prize.
When I beat you, I want to know I beat you at your best. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm making my most calculated decisions. So just so you know,
it's working out. You're in first. It's working really well.
No. It did not, dude. If it weren't for me being the only guy that took the gamble on the first to the finish line challenge, which is optional, and getting one of them right with Jett, and I got the other one wrong, so I lost 7 points, but I gained 8 since I gained 15 from getting the Jett Lawrence first to finish line. Basically first guy to do the first lap and cross the finish line first, not finish the race first, but just that first lap. I got that right. That's the only reason I got first, because I only won by a couple of points. If I didn't have that, or if I didn't get that right, and I lost 15 points from both of them, I would have finished like 3rd or 4th. So
yeah, because
I had the lowest 450 point score because Malcolm Stewart got freezed, and then Hunter Lawrence, who was a great pick because he was a non-all-star, 0 handicap, definite top 10 with the speed he was showing in qualifying. He got freezed and then didn't make the main.
Yeah, sure looked like a great pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, look,
Yeah.
I would do the
Didn't make
same
the
decision
main.
again with those handicaps and all-star rankings. Do the same thing. I will do the same thing again. I'll probably pick him again next week. They'll
Well,
probably
it
still have an
worked
EV
out.
handicap.
Yeah, like I said, it worked out. That's another thing, guys.
Barely.
By the way, Cole informed me of first to finish means the first one to hit the finish line on the first lap. It is
Yes,
not
it's first to finish
the
line.
winner. Yes.
Yes.
So if you got a guy that, like a Beaumare who might pull a whole shot and hold the lead for the first lap, like kind of like a whole shot artist, so to speak, that's who you're going to want to go with. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Any
outside picks, dude.
any last thoughts for you?
No, let's just go straight into our first fan question coming from Colin Hitchcock. The question is, will Jett go back to back? And
It's a great
look,
question.
if it goes anything like motocross, he definitely could. I'm praying he doesn't for the sake of just like I want to see what it looks like when he loses. I want to see how he comes back. More importantly, I just want to see him get challenged. Like even if he does a back to back, but he's having a battle for the lead, he's having a pass for the lead. He's not just pulling a whole shot and keeping it, or he gets passed after pulling a whole shot and he has to battle back. Want to see a good battle for the lead. I think we will. I mean, if there's one thing we've seen in Supercross, even the most dominant of champions still get beat and still have, low nights because there's just such little room for error and there's so much chaos in this sport. So it's not going to be like motocross where you have so much more room to move around. And, Supercross is called Death Cross for a reason. So, you can have a bad night any night. So I don't know. I don't know what mine's going to be because like I'm still scarred from watching his perfection in motocross and how good he was in SMX. I'm like, yeah, he could. But if Tomac and Kenny get in play and Kenny doesn't get freezed, I think Kenny was fast enough to challenge him there. So
Would
I'm
you
gonna say no.
say?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay,
What
you're saying
What do you
no.
think? See, that's the thing. Is
Well,
you're
I was
like,
gonna say
I wouldn't
no,
be
but
surprised.
you said no, so now I want to say yes, so that we get a win as a team here. But I gotta,
Okay.
if
We
in
cover the
case he
spread.
wins, yeah, we're hedging our bets here. I gotta say no as well. But for me, it's because I think you've got too many guys that are pissed off right now.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Mookie's
dude,
pissed. Kenny's
imagine
pissed. Tomac's pissed.
Webb's pissed,
Webb's
Anderson's
pissed.
pissed.
Anderson's pissed. Yep.
They're pissed, bro. This guy comes in here, does something that's never been done before, and if you're not first, you're last.
Yep.
So these guys all just lost to him.
Yep.
I'm sure during motocross they were all sitting there thinking like, okay, yeah, you can take the motocross championship, you can win these races, blah blah blah. Half of us we're all injured anyways, or just not racing motocross because we're switching teams right now, or we're gonna race super motocross, world supercross, whatever.
Or we just suck.
Fine, yeah,
Or
fine.
those guys too.
Yeah, or we're hate our bike right now. We're going to be switching to a new team next year. I'm just
At
out
Cooper Webb.
here. Yeah, at Jason. What is it? Dylan Ferrandis.
Dylan Ferrandis.
Yeah. Okay. Take Supercross. That's yours. You can have it. Congratulations.
Or motocross rather. Yeah.
Yeah, motocross. Yeah. But Supercross, they're all sitting there thinking, Supercross, buddy comes in. We're going to absolutely
He gonna find out.
this kid. Yeah, he's going to learn today. You're going to
Yep.
learn today. Yeah,
Mhm.
well, he didn't. He didn't learn anything new. All he figured out was he's probably correct that he's going to get McGrath's win record.
I wouldn't go that far. But he
Well,
did
let me
make
tell you,
history.
He's 1 for 1. He's
Yeah.
undefeated. So far, he did exactly what he needed to do. The plan is working flawlessly. Okay.
Yep.
And everybody else is not happy.
Look, all I'm saying is, as long as Vince Freeze is on the track, nobody's safe. Okay. So if he is, he might be hurt. We'll see if he comes back. So like it's people like Vince Freeze that make me say no. He's not gonna. He's definitely not gonna three-peat. Knock on wood. He's definitely not going to go 17-0 because people like Vince Freeze and to a much lesser degree than Vince Freeze, and that's saying something. Justin Barcia exists. El Hombre, when he's having kind of a moody night, he exists in that same conversation of just throwing a front wheel down there and just hoping for the best. So for that reason, I don't think we're going to see 2023 outdoor Jett on the 450 level of dominance. But I think the big thing was, look, he made history. He broke James Stewart's record of best finish as a premier class rookie of third. And he's the only rookie in the premier class in the 50-year history of this sport to actually win his debut race at the premier class level. So, look, props to him. That's a fantastic achievement. I hope he doesn't continue to do it like every night. We want to see different winners. Every year we usually have 4 to 5 winners. I'm hoping we don't see only 2 to 3. I want to see 5, 6, 7 different winners with a stack of classes we have. It could happen. We talked about all the guys that could win races. I've got one guy that's my favorite rider of Malcolm Stewart that I really want to see him get that race win. It's going to be tough, though, because you got a lot of great riders you got to go through to get it done. And one of those guys is a bad man named Jett Lawrence.
Yeah. Oh, I did have one other thing I wanted to mention before we go.
Yep.
I want to give a shout out to the poor fella, Phil Nicoletti, a mechanical before the race even started.
Yeah, but like an ECU injury, ECU failure. I'm about to say ECU injury. No, it's an ECU failure or something
ECU
like that.
Was injured, but yeah.
Yeah. ECU was definitely injured. And here's the craziest thing. So for those that don't know, this is the first year they changed the points to where I think the winner in previous years used to get 26 points. And then last place we get one singular point. So at least if you made the main event, you're like a privateer that shouldn't be there, but you at least made the main, you get one singular point. You could say, I scored a point. Great. Good. I think that's good. This year, it's only 25 for the win, I believe. And then last place does not get a point. So what a great way to start off the rule where a guy can't even start. He gets no point. It's like, dadgummit. I mean, Filthy Phil, he's a good rider. Dude. He would have at least gotten a.
They were looking good out there. The muck-off guys were looking good. Mm-hmm. They were riding well. So sucks, but that's racing. So
it's casualty. I mean, there's 7 other guys that had that kind of same luck. Well, one of them wasn't the one controlling luck. He was dishing it out. Once again, I'm going to keep hating on Freeze the rest of the season. So I'm sorry. I'm pissed. I'm still pissed. You take out my favorite guy on the first turn, we're done. Okay. I hope someone throws it on the inside of him and launches him into the first section of the stadium at San Francisco next week. So yeah, that'll do it for this one, boys. And we'll see you guys in a race recap for next week. Tell you what, right before we go, who's your pick to win next week? If it's not Jett, if it's not Jett, or is it Jett?
No, because I said no on Jett going back to back, so I got to stick with that. Mm-hmm. Cooper Webb.
Okay, I'm going Ken Roxon.
Oh, that's my second choice. Okay,
my heart is with Mookie.
Yeah.
And I think he can do it, but I think he's going to need a little bit more time to just put full races together.
Yeah.
Just get the rust off. He hasn't raced in almost a year, but he did have the speed. Look good in the whoops. Look good in his heat race. So we'll see. But he just needs to have a full race where he just gets through it with no tip overs, no anything. Puts it all together. Kenny, he looked really good, really really good. He had that top 3 speed. Looked really good in the whoops. Looked really, really comfortable on the bike. I think he can do it. So, yeah, with that being said, we'll see you guys in a week. And for those of you guys playing PulpMX Fantasy or playing other fantasy Supercross leagues, may the luck of the Supercross gods be with you. Because, boy, did we need it. I mean, I won, but by the skin of my teeth. And honestly, I did not deserve to win with how terrible my night went. So that just speaks to how terrible everyone else's night went. So – so we'll see you guys next week, and peace.
Later.